to Paul Ricard and the 6th race of the International GTOpen season. It is a glorious day in the south of France, and so far we have had the most magnificent weekend of racing as the International GTOpen season really kicks up a gear as we head towards the halfway point of the season. It's hello from Ben Evans as the cars are just heading out onto the circuit on their installation laps. And well, can anything today top the magnificent race that we had yesterday that was claimed by Roldan Rodriguez and Miguel Ramos, but not after the most titanic of scraps over the final couple of laps. Well, it's a very different looking grid for today's race because lining up in pole position it is Duncan Tappy for the Garage 59 McLaren squad, and Tappy would almost certainly have been part of the fight for the lead in the closing stages, but for an unfortunate incident for his co-driver Michael Benham at the first corner in yesterday's race, which led to a little bit of damage to the Garage 59 McLaren, and therefore they made it through to the finish. They were some way adrift. We also had a super scrap as well in the GTAM class yesterday, and that was claimed by Max Brahms and Philippe Barrieros. We just caught a glimpse there of Brahms in the V8 Racing Renault. As heading to the grid is Fernando Mounier at the wheel of the Teo Martin Motorsport BMW. He and Gustavo Jackermann unfortunate to retire once more from yesterday's race, and what's been a fairly torrid start to the year for them after second place at Estoril in the season opener. That has proved to be something of a full storm, because thereafter it's been uphill all the way. Well, the car that's long overdue a victory is that one, the orange one, Team Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan of Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani. They very nearly achieved it yesterday, but there was contact very late on between Biaggi and Ewan Hankey. It resulted in a spin for Thomas Biaggi, demoted him to 5th. Well, we have got the Sport and U Mercedes, Luis Silva and Antonio Coimbra, who have been a very competitive proposition throughout the season so far as the grid begins to form up. Davide Roda in the Lamborghini, just getting a little bit of a sense of the track conditions, just trying to warm up his Michelin tyre as well, because although the ambient air temperature is very nice, it's not scorchingly hot, and the Michelin tyre does generally take a lap or two to come up to temperature in all except for really the warmest of conditions. As the crowd look down on the grid, here is the Triple F Lamborghini Huracan of Andrea Caldarelli and Vitantonio Liuzzi, the pair of them making their debut in the International GTOpen yesterday, finished 3rd after that amazing scrap in the latter stage of the race. But Caldarelli, one could argue, had race-winning pace. He was certainly the quickest driver in the closing phase of the race, but he proved that, of course, it's one thing to catch the car in front, it's quite another to find your way past it. Miguel Angel de Castro in the DriveX Audi that he shares with Juan Cruz Alvarez got shuffled a little bit in the latter stages yesterday, but in particular Juan Cruz Alvarez putting together an absolutely brilliant drive in the first half of the race. And certainly that's a car that could be in contention for a podium when the 60 minutes of racing are up this afternoon. This is the slightly shorter race of the weekend, because yesterday we had a 70-minute race. This is a 60-minute race. There is, of course, the mandatory pit stop window. That's a 12-minute window in the middle of the race, from when there are 36 minutes left on the clock to when there are 24 minutes left on the clock. And that's when the element of strategy, of course, comes into play. Let's have a look then at the grid now that's formed up. Pole position in the Garage 59 McLaren is Duncan Tappy. Tappy fully focused on the job ahead. He shares the front row with Marco Ciocci in the AF Corse Ferrari 488, and Ciocci and Tappy, don't forget, in race 1 at Spa-Francorchamps came together, which resulted in a puncture for Tappy. They'll be looking to avoid that today. 3rd on the grid, the TF Sport Aston Martin of Ewan Hankey and Sally Yullock. It's Ewan Hankey who starts, and this is another car that is long overdue a podium. Hankey pushed very hard to get into the leading train yesterday, but couldn't quite convert it into a rostrum. Triple F Racing by ACM Lamborghini then Andrea Caldarelli starting the race before handing over to the ex-F1 racer Vitantonio Liuzzi. On to row 3, yesterday's race winner Roldan Rodriguez lines up in 5th position in the BMW that he shares with the reigning champion Miguel Ramos, the BMW team Teo Martin. Rodriguez absolutely buzzing after yesterday's race, was delighted with the victory. 6th on the grid for Fabio Bobini in the Ebby Motors Lamborghini. Big thumbs up from Fabio, and he'll hand over to Emanuele Busnelli. Mid-race, very, very high calibre first couple of rows on the grid, and so it continues on to the 4th row with Fernando Monnier in the 2nd of the BMW team Teo Martin W's. Monnier really looking for a good result to build in that 2nd place in Estoril, and they share the 4th row of the grid with Phil Keane in the Balfe Motorsport Ferrari. Phil Keane and Sean Balfe are still the championship leaders. They've had that lead ever since they scored victory in the first race of the year in Estoril. 9th on the grid, Thomas Biaggi in the orange one Team Lazarus Lamborghini that he shares with Fabrizio Crestani. And really any one of the first 9 cars on the grid you would look to potentially take the win, and there are also a few further back that could come into the mix later on. Here then is how they line up in full, with in pole position Duncan Tappi, alongside him Marco Ciocci. Be interesting to see if the Ferrari can jump the McLaren at the start. Then Ewan Hankey and Andrea Caldarelli on row 2, Aston Martin Lamborghini. Then we've got the BMW and Lamborghini of Roldan Rodriguez and Fabio Bobini. Phil Key will be hoping to improve from 8th. He's got fantastic racecraft. I think he's going to need it. 5th row of the grid is Thomas Biaggi and Stefan Lemeray in the Ferrari 458 that he shares with John Dillon. Then it's James Abbott and Miguel Angel de Castro on row 6. Now watch on the 7th row of the grid. Alex West starts the car, but he will hand over to Colm Ledegaard, who dominated the first half of yesterday's race, and so that car could very much come into contention. It's Davide Roda in his Lamborghini Huracan who completes the field, and he's the only driver in the race as well who will complete the whole 60 minutes single-handedly. So everybody just getting into position for their preferred vantage points as the last mechanics are just cleared from the grid. The cars fire up, then they're going to have the solitary green flag formation lap to see how the conditions have changed since qualifying, to just get some heat into the tyres before we will be going racing for the 6th time this season in the International GTOpen. Well, yesterday we saw Colm Ledegaard spread the field early on. So the car's ready to go on to the formation lap. Going to be fascinating to see how this race unfolds. Colm Ledegaard dominated the first phase of yesterday's race before he picked up a puncture, and then we had the incredible scrapping late on. Well, today we have got a lot of the pro drivers taking to the start of the race. It's going to be vital for Duncan Tappi, amongst others, to get the jump early on. There is Ledegaard, who will take over from Alex West mid-race, and if West can stay in contention, well, he and West are long overdue a victory. It looked like it was going to come yesterday. It didn't quite happen. Will it come this afternoon? The field off around the Paul Ricard circuit, this high-tech facility featuring the unique runoff with the blue and red bands of high abrasion tarmac. The blue bands, when you see those, is high grip tarmac, which slows the car down in the event of a spin, and also if a driver runs wide, it just punishes them a little bit for having made that mistake by slowing them down. The red bands is ultra high abrasion, tungsten studded asphalt, and the idea of that is twofold. Firstly, it brings the car to a halt before it comes into contact with anything more solid, but also it does serve in the way that a gravel trap or something might do, in that it will almost certainly result in a flat spotted tyre and may necessitate a pit stop or for the driver to make it through to the flag whilst managing a degraded tyre. So field coming through turn 7 now as John Dillon confers with the AF Course Mechanics. On to the Mistral Straight. This really is the classic Paul Ricard shot. Of course, when Formula One ran on the old layout of Paul Ricard, which was through until the mid-1980s, it was this Mistral Straight without the chicane that we have now. It was an absolutely flat-out blast towards the Courbe du Cygne. Of course, although there are myriad layers on the current version of Paul Ricard, the one we use has got the chicane midway down the Mistral Straight. It provides an additional overtaking opportunity before the pack then continue the run towards the Courbe du Cygne. There is the sporting Mercedes of Luis Silva and Antonio Coimbra. It's a moment of levity inside the Balfe Motorsport garage. They're watching for their car, which is nestled pretty much squarely in the midfield with Phil Keane. And Keane had been right at the sharp end of qualifying until the final couple of laps. It was a really close qualifying session earlier on today. There's Tim Mullen, the team manager for Garage 59. Cohen Ledegaard alongside him. And Mullen will be just hoping, really, I think, that Duncan Tappy makes it through the opening exchanges without any drama, because in the two of the last three races, the car has been involved in an incident at the first corner which has necessitated a pit stop and, to all intents and purposes, taken it out of the running. Certainly for a race victory, but the times in qualifying earlier on were so close, just a couple of tenths of seconds covering really the top 6 or 7 cars, that what I think is going to be unlikely is to see anybody romping clear in these early stages. Instead, probably look to see some very close scrapping before strategy starts to come into effect, before the pit window opens when we're 24 minutes into the race, and that's when we will start to see things begin to be turned on their head. For now, though, the field forming up side by side. We're about to go racing for the 6th time in this year's International GTOpen Championship. It's the orange Garage 59 McLaren of Duncan Tappy alongside the scarlet AF Course Ferrari of Marco Ciocci on the front row. Then you have got the navy blue Aston Martin Ewan Hankey, the black Lamborghini of Andrea Caldarelli. As the field run down the start and finish straight, they wait for the red lights to go out. When they do, we'll be going racing. Who anticipates the start? They're still being held, and away we go now. And Duncan Tappy gets the jump on Marco Ciocci. Ewan Hankey trying to get away well. So is Roldan Rodriguez and Fernando Monnier. And it's Caldarelli who has been shuffled down as they head into the opening couple of turns. Are they through cleanly? Yes, they are. No, they're not. Around goes Stefan Lemire, but that's just a quick spin. He should be back up to speed in no time at all. While Phil Keane has made good progress, he is clear of Fernando Monnier. Caldarelli has also regained a couple of the places that he lost on the sprint towards turn 1, but it's Tappy who leads from Ciocci. Then it's Ewan Hankey. Then Roldan Rodriguez from Caldarelli, Phil Keane, Fernando Monnier, Fabio Babini and Thomas Biaggi. As the field flick out of turn 7 and on to the Mistral Straight for the first time. Headlights ablaze from the race leaders. Ciocci in the Ferrari 488 tries to close up. Duncan Tappy looks to try and challenge the McLaren on the brakes into the chicane. He can't quite do it. Behind everybody else fanning out for position. It's the Radical of James Abbott running a little bit wide further back. He'll need to pick his moment carefully before he rejoins, which indeed he does, as Tappy heads the charge into the Courbe du Cygne. There's a bit of a gap already between Hankey and Roldan Rodriguez, then Caldarelli and the low-lying Lamborghini Huracan, sandwiched by the BMWs, because Fernando Monnier able to propel himself past Phil Keane. Oh, a bit of contact there between Fernando Monnier and Andrea Caldarelli. Caldarelli's car just unsettled by the curb. Monnier left with nowhere to go, just giving the Lamborghini a little bit of a tap. As Phil Keane now comes under pressure from Fabio Babini, but Keane a little bit stuck. He's got nowhere to go. He's quicker through the corners than Fernando Monnier, but the BMW maybe just got the legs on the Ferrari on the straight. So Keane jinking and jostling, trying to find a way past, but he can't do it as they swing through the final turn and accelerate past the pits complex through to the completion of the first lap of the race. Field all very tightly bunched still. Ciocci pressurises Tapie. Ewan Hankey just cruising up to the tail of that train. Then there's a gap of about 2 seconds back to Roldan Rodriguez in fourth. Meanwhile, Max Brahms was looking to make progress the inside of Miguel Angel de Castro as they arrived into turns 1 and 2. Now these three leading cars, Tapie, Ciocci and Ewan Hankey, all of their co-drivers, not quite as quick as the pros, and therefore they know they need to build a gap. Meanwhile, Caldrelli all over the tail of Roldan Rodriguez. Fernando Monnier trying to sneak through as well, and Caldrelli moving across at the last moment to cover the line. This is going to be very tight as they come onto the Mistral straight. We've got the fight at the front of the field as well, because Ciocci looks to the inside of Tapie as Rodriguez covers the middle of the road. Everybody else fans out behind. How's this going to shake itself out? The answer is 3 wide into the chicane, remains 3 wide, and Caldrelli somehow finding the traction around the outside, and they're pretty much exactly as they were when it all started, which is Caldrelli sandwiched by the 2 BMWs. But now Fernando Monnier might just be able to draw alongside the Lamborghini Huracan. Indeed he does. Phil Keane also tries to make the move stick as Caldrelli looks to the outside, coming out of the Courbe du Cygne, then to the inside into the double right-hander. Keane has still got Babini hustling him, and then we've got Thomas Biaggi as well, just keeping a watching breath in the Lamborghini Huracan, the Team Lazarus car. We're only on the second lap of the race, and this is quite the scrap that we've got for fourth position. We've got a not dissimilar one going on at the very front of the field as well, but now the 2 BMW Team Teo Martin entries can fly in formation a little bit, try and keep Andrea Caldrelli at bay. Meanwhile, Ciocci again looks to apply the pressure to Duncan Tapie. Tapie able to absorb it. The gap from Ewan Hankey now back to Roldan Rodriguez has grown as a result of that dicing to 6.2 seconds. So the leaders going to build a nice and healthy buffer over the scrap for fourth. That's exactly what they were aiming to achieve. It's Hankey in the TF Sport Aston Martin. He'll hand over to Sally Yuluk. It's Pier Giuseppe Perezzini who'll take over from Ciocci, and then Michael Benham from Duncan Tapie. Meanwhile, Monnier getting his elbows out, trying to dart to the inside Roldan Rodriguez. Rodriguez got his own race and championship charge to worry about. I think he'd be rather hoping that Monnier would run shotgun for him. That, of course, isn't going to happen. So along the Mistral straight. No challenge to lead the race. What about in the fight for fourth? Monnier bursts out of the bubble, looks to the inside of Roldan Rodriguez, and Rodriguez may have picked up a little bit of damage to the front of his car. It's just the front spoiler looks a little bit askew as Monnier trying to hustle his way past, and he might have succeeded on this occasion, or has he? Rodriguez has still got his nose in front, and we saw yesterday that Roldan Rodriguez is the master of defensive driving, and he's picking up pretty much exactly where he left off from yesterday, which is just having to check in his mirrors all the time as he's got this queue of cars behind him. This is the fight for fourth. It's Rodriguez, then Monnier, the 2 BMWs, then Caldrelli and Babini, the 2 Lamborghinis, then Phil Keane in the Ferrari, then the bright orange Lamborghini of Thomas Biaggi. Just behind Biaggi is Max Brahms, the GTOpen class leader. Ian Philippe Barriero's claiming honours in that. Yesterday's race after a great scrap with Luis Silva and Antonio Coimbra. Caldrelli, for all his aggression, can't find a way, can he, to jump the BMWs as Monnier shuts the door, and by doing so actually ends up attacking Roldan Rodriguez. And now this is a moment to savour or scare you, depending on your disposition in the Teo Martin garage. As the 2 cars run in tandem side by side, and Monnier finally is able to find a way past Roldan Rodriguez. It's now Rodriguez who has got to ride shotgun to the attentions of Andrea Caldrelli, but Caldrelli, for all the hustling of the Lamborghini, just can't find a way yet to overhaul the BMWs. And this is the beauty of multi-mark GT racing. The cars have got these strengths at different sections of the circuit. Oh, almost contact as Caldrelli went around the outside of Monnier. In fact, there may even have been some contact. Caldrelli does rejoin in front of Rodriguez. So apologies, Rodriguez, he was trying to go around the outside of. Also through is Fabio Babini. Now, has Roldan Rodriguez picked up any damage? There's Vitantonio Liuzzi. He'll take over from Caldarelli. So Roldan Rodriguez now under pressure from Phil Keane, and indeed Thomas Biaggi. Phil Keane picks his way past the BMW into the chicane. This is the problem when these cars are so evenly matched. All it takes is just one or two corners offline and suddenly you're losing lots of places. Here's another look at it. Caldarelli to the outside of Rodriguez, yet there was a definite tap. Fortunately, I think without damage to either car. Now there is Thomas Biaggi, who's lost out, in fact, to Max Brahms through the Courbe du Cygne. At the front of the field, Ewan Hankey is now 9.2 seconds clear of Fernando Monnier. Here is the leading trio, and they're doing exactly what they needed to. Duncan Tapia, Marco Ciocci running in tandem, Ewan Hankey staying with them. Then we've got this fight for fourth, Fernando Monnier, Andrea Caldarelli. And do we have a slight problem for Roldan Rodriguez? I think we may do. He has lost out to Max Brahms. Is he going to dart towards the pits? No, he's not. He continues. There is an increasingly anxious Miguel Ramos. Take over from him. Certainly Rodriguez has picked up a little bit of damage in the early exchanges, and these cars are so finely poised in terms of their aerodynamics that all it takes is to be a millimetre or two out here or there, and it costs you a decisive amount of time on the circuit. Caldarelli has got Fabio Babini queuing up behind him. The pair of them are both looking to find a way past Fernando Monnier. You also could see a little bit of damage as well to Caldarelli's car. Some of the rear trim. No such problems so far for Duncan Tapie. The bright orange McLaren leads Marco Ciocci and Ewan Hankey, as it has done since the start of the race. And all three of those cars won't have success seconds to contend with in the pits, whereas the cars that would have finished on the rostrum yesterday do, because that's how performance gets balanced through the year in the International GTOpen, is that cars that finish well up on the podium in the preceding day's race get additional time to spend in the pits, and it just evens things out throughout the course of the season. It's Fernando Monnier being chased by Andrea Caldarelli and Fabio Babini, but Monnier running at a pace at the moment which is just about sufficient to keep Caldarelli and the Lamborghini at bay. If anything, Caldarelli now under pressure from Fabio Babini. In fact, Babini looks to the inside of Caldarelli. They just about give each other enough racing room. As Caldarelli runs a little bit wide, does all he can to keep Babini behind him. This is the fight for 5th and 6th position. Babini darts out at the last moment again into the final turn. Caldarelli was always going to shut the door. Fabio Babini realised it, jumped on the anchors. It brings Phil Keane back into the party in 7th place. So they all flash through. This is to complete the 5th lap of the race. We're almost at 1/4 race distance as well. Fernando Monnier in 4th. He is 10.6 seconds back from Ewan Hankey, but as that scrapping around Roldan Rodriguez has come to a halt, then what that means is that the gap that he's losing to the race leaders is beginning to close, and certainly for he and Gustavo Jackermann, this potentially leaves them in a very good position with regards to a race victory, because Jackermann, who will take over from Monnier, is going to have the legs, one would suggest, on the second drivers for the 3 leading cars. Meanwhile, Ciocci, the way he showed himself to inside Duncan Tapie there, would maybe suggest that he feels that he can make the Ferrari go just a little bit quicker than the McLaren, and would rather like to be ahead of the McLaren to allow him to do that. Of course, Duncan Tapie has got no plan to do any such thing for Marco Ciocci, so the pair of them continue to run in tandem. Tapie just defends in double right-hander, but this has led to an elevation of the pace from Duncan Tapie. It means that Ewan Hankey is just slipping back a little bit in the Aston Martin in third place. That gap has gone out to probably 1.5 seconds or so. As Tappy tries to keep the tight line in the McLaren. Ciocci hustling him every which way in the Ferrari 488. They're all ready to the end of lap 6. They'll head past their pit boxes now. The gap between the pair of them was 0.4 of a second at the start of the lap. It comes down to 0.3 of a second at the end of it. But Ciocci's still not close enough to make the move. Now, the other key gap is going to be that from Ewan Hankey, who's now 1.3 seconds back from Ciocci, back to Fernando Monnier. It goes out to 11 seconds. So this leading group of cars in clear air, where they're not really fighting each other, they're about 0.6 of a second a lap up on Fernando Monnier. And so whilst that's going to allow them to build up a lead, it's not going to allow them to build an enormous lead. Michael Benham already a race winner this year alongside Duncan Tappy. That came in race 2 at Estoril. Marco Ciocci and Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, a very, very experienced combination. And Sally Uluk, who will take over from Ewan Hankey, improving his pace each and every time he gets in the car. Now it's coming into the chicane each and every lap where Ciocci just feels that maybe he's got the legs on Tappy, but he can't find a way past. Thinks about having a little bit of a look into the second half of the chicane again. No way through there. There's Mike Benham over at the far side of the garage. Meanwhile, Andrea Caldarelli has got himself onto terms with Fernando Monnier and is now going to try and climb up into 4th position. It's taken him a couple of laps to close back up to the BMW. He's brought Fabio Babini with him for company. It means they've been able to drop Phil Keane. Roldan Rodriguez, I fear, is nursing a bit of an issue. He's slipped now all the way down to 11th place. The other car, of course, that we talked about as a potential winner before the start of the race is Alex West. He's currently in 13th. He's 31 seconds off the lead in the second of the Garage 59 McLarens. And so that's going to be a fair exam question for Com Ledegaard, but it's one that he might be able to answer as Ciocci again thinks about the move on Duncan Tappy. Tappy again responds. We complete the 7th lap of the race. We hit 1/4 race distance in the 6th race of the International GTOpen season. You're watching the battle for the 3 leaders, Duncan Tappy from Marco Ciocci and Ewan Hankey. And then we've got the gap back in 4th place, Fernando Monnier. 5th is Andrea Caldarelli. 6th, Fabio Babini. 7th, Phil Keane. 8th is Max Brahms. 9th, Thomas Biaggi. 10th, Stefan Lemeray. 11th, Roldan Rodriguez. 12th, Miguel Angel de Castro. 13th, Alex West. 14th, James Abbott. And then Davide Roda and Luis Silva having a good scrap over 15th and 16th position. As Ciocci looks to pick up the throttle again in the 488 as Tappy leads the charge along the Mistral straight. It's still 8 minutes or so until the pit window opens, and then Tappy and Ciocci and Hankey have got the benefit of a 12-minute pit window, which is going to give them time, depending where they are on the track when they cross the line with the pit window opening, to give them an extra 5 or 6 laps. Meanwhile, Andrea Caldarelli flashing his headlights at Fernando Monnier. Caldarelli probably rightly feels that if he was in clear air, he'd be able to circulate a little bit more quickly than he is. But he's racing Fernando Monnier for position, and Monnier places the BMW right in the middle of the road as they accelerate towards the Courbe du Cygne. Caldarelli gives a lot of thought to pushing to the inside. Can't quite make the move stick. Fernando Monnier keeps the car perfectly poised coming out of Courbe du Cygne into the double right-hander, and the BMW just eases away from the Lamborghini. That's a nice few corners for Fernando Monnier. Means he can use the torque of the BMW to climb back uphill as Fabio Babini hassles and harries the triple. Oh, and there's contact between Ciocci and Duncan Tappy into the final turn. Now, has there been any damage incurred? I really hope not. As Ciocci flashes his headlights, Duncan Tappy, he's clearly not happy about it. Now, we'll see from this angle. I think it was a brush of contact rather than anything more significant, but Chiocci looking to come back to the garage 59 McLaren, and he was always going to have a challenge. But Tappi, obviously fighting to lead the race, not minded to give way to Chiocci, not minded to give him any ground whatsoever. Here is another look at it. So they come towards the final corner. Chiocci launches the inside Tappi, gives Chiocci racing room. Fortunately, it's wheel-to-door contact. So although Tappi's just barged sideways a little bit, neither car picking up damage. Well, remarkably placid on the AF course pit wall. And this is what they want to see. They want to see if Chiocci can force his way past into the chicane. The answer is no, he can't, but the rear wing and the Ferrari almost juddering under the braking pressures which Chiocci was putting on it. Chiocci then leaps over the curbs on the exit. Meanwhile, Caldarelli hoping to challenge Fernando Monnier into the chicane. Can't do it. Babini looks to close up as well. Third place, Ewan Hankey in the TF Sport Aston Martin. It's only 1.4 seconds back from this scrap for the lead, and is perfectly placed to pick up any pieces were it to go wrong. But both Marco Chiocci and Duncan Tappi, a wealth of experience underneath their belts. And they know not to do anything silly, not in the first phase of the race. They are under investigation, though, for that instant. So we'll keep you updated if anything comes of that, as they swing through the final turn. Just about 1/3 race distance. Still Chiocci getting very, very familiar with what the tail of the McLaren looks like. But other than that attempt into the final corner, he's not really been able to draw alongside Tappi just yet. Fight for fourth momentarily stabilises. Fernando Monnier continues to hold on to it from Caldarelli, Babini and Phil Keane, doing a good job lurking with intent there in 7th place. There is the championship leader, Phil Keane. He and Sean Balfe would, I think, be very happy if they could get the top 5 from this one, maybe even a podium if things begin to fall as they'd like them to. As headlights ablaze, Duncan Tappi heads along the Mistral straight. We're on to the 10th lap of the race again. Chiocci flashing his headlights incessantly at Tappi, trying to get Tappi to leave an opening for him on the way into the chicane to allow him through. It doesn't happen. Oh, and that's a real shame. Luis Silva in the Sport & New Mercedes in trouble. Now, I really hope that he is far enough clear of the circuit. That's not going to bring the safety car out, because that would disrupt the flow of the race. It's over at turn 12. As Chiocci looks to the inside of Tappi. So it's just this section of track they're about to approach now is where Luis Silva lost control. It means that they'll see the yellow flags from the marshals. They'll know not to do anything silly. There indeed is Luis Silva. And certainly that Mercedes, if Silva doesn't get it back under speed, is going to require retrieval. The safety car now, just as we approach the pit window, would throw all of the strategies of the race onto its head. Chiocci still swarms on the tail of Tappi. Means that Ewan Hankey can just hold station. The lead that Tappi has got over Fernando Monnier, and the fight for fourth, is some 15 seconds now. None of these 3 cars either will have any success seconds, or rather they will. Perezzini and Chiocci have got an additional 15 seconds in the pits relative to Tappi and Benneman. That also helps to explain Chiocci's anxiety to get through, because he knows that it stays as it is and the pit stops run to their mandatory minimum time, then Perezzini's got to find 15 seconds on Michael Benneman. Meanwhile, Fabio Babini launching to the inside of Andrea Caldarelli, knocking the wheel arch, the Lamborghini off. That was a lap ago. But Tappy and Benham, no success seconds. Ewan Hankey, Sally Yuluk, likewise. And the pit's going to be opening very, very shortly. 12-minute pit window. Allows for the elements of strategy. We've still got the yellow flag, by the way, for the car of Louise Silver, but we haven't got the safety car on standby or indeed scrambled, so looks like it's going to be able to be recovered under a localised yellow flag, which is great news. It's going to allow the race to play out, see how these pit stops unwind. Tappy's got Chiocci glued to his tail. Alex West, for reference, 47 seconds now adrift of the lead of the race, which is going to be quite the task for Colm Ledegaard. But he is one of many very quick drivers who'll be taking over for the second phase of the race. We've also got, of course, Fabrizio Cristani to take over from Thomas Biaggi. We've got Gustavo Jacquemin from Fernando Mornier and Vitantonio Liuzzi from Andrea Caldarelli. So the order of the race now is potentially anything but what it's going to be in the closing stages, but still this battle between Chiocci and Tappy continues, and I just wonder if Marco Chiocci has had the word through on the radio, don't take any risks with the car. If there's a way past Tappy, by all means take it, but don't do anything unnecessary, because he just seems to be a little bit less aggressive than he was possibly a lap or two ago. Pair of them swing through turn 7 as the pit window starts to open. Meanwhile, Caldarelli draws alongside Fernando Mornier. Once more, the Lamborghini Huracan trying to find a way past the BMW, but it's not happened so far for Caldarelli. And the BMW is a car with a lot of torque, a lot of straight line grunt, as into the pits. Right at the opening of the pit window is Alex West to hand over to Colm Ledegaard. West and Ledegaard are well overdue a smooth run. And that's certainly a smooth pit stop from the Garage 59 team. Meanwhile, Caldarelli almost pushing Fernando Mornier out of the chicane. Fabio Babini is there as well, so he's clearly got no ill effects from that contact. And Phil Keane also in close contention. Caldarelli wanted to dart to the inside, he couldn't do it. Just wonder whether or not Andrea Caldarelli might come in at the end of this lap to just get out of the traffic, as Chiocci again appreciably closer to Duncan Tappy as they wind their way on towards turns 15 and 16. And Chiocci's possibly poised for a little nibble to the inside of Tappy into the final turn. He's poised for more than that. He darts the inside of the McLaren, and this time Marco Chiocci takes the lead of the race. Duncan Tappy will look to fight back with immediate effect. You could see for a couple of corners that that's what Chiocci was lining up. That's how around there was nothing that Tappy could do. So now that Chiocci is released in some clear air, will we see him pull the pin, or was the pace that Tappy was running at pretty much about as quickly as he could get the Ferrari to go? Here's another look at it. And this time around he was completely alongside by the apex. And you could see that Tappy realised that there was no point in closing the door. He just had to let the Ferrari go. Also into the pits is Thomas Biaggi to hand over to Fabrizio Cristani. So Cristani gets jumps into the Lamborghini, strapped in. Miguel Ramos to take over from Roldan Rodriguez as well. I think Rodriguez may have been struggling with a flat-spotted tyre. And Miguel Angel de Castro in to pass over to Juan Cruz. Alvarez is on track. Andrea Caldarelli has found a way past Fernando Mornier. That's been a long time coming, and now Caldarelli is released. What sort of pace can the Italian unleash with some clear air? That is, of course, if Mornier doesn't find a way back past him into the chicane, which he can't quite do. The front of the Abbey Motors Lamborghini flapping in the wind. Here's another look at it. Through turn 6, and it's been where Caldarelli seemed the most confident. He just got the switch back coming out of turn 5, and this time around there was the space to the inside, and he was able to make the move. And it's going to be through this final sector on the lap where Caldarelli is really going to look to push on in the Lamborghini. He and Vitantonio Liuzzi have got some success seconds, some 20 seconds or so they need to manage in the pits as well. So despite the excellent track position at the moment for Caldarelli and Liuzzi, by dint of their success yesterday, they're going to have some more racing to do in the second phase of the race in order to push on to the podium. As the Ebi Motors Lamborghini, Babini looks to the inside of Fernando Monnier. Monnier has to give him racing room. There's still contact. Phil Keane, I think, will be overjoyed with that, as he is able to pick his way past Fabio Babini. Babini might look to fight back in the Lamborghini as the pair of them run side by side towards turn one. The Lamborghini is overlapping with the Ferrari, but Phil Keane in the end has to settle as the Lamborghini's got the inside line. And so I think Phil knew that Babini, having observed him for the past few laps, knows that he's going to try absolutely anything, anywhere. And probably knew that even if he shut the door, Babini was going to remain committed to the move. So instead he's going to see if he can just force the Lamborghini offline elsewhere on the track. This fight for 6th and 7th place. So here is a look at how it all started. Babini saw a gap to the inside of Fernando Monnier. They just about gave each other enough racing room, although it was pretty intimate. A little bit of contact as well, hopefully without too much damage to either car. And Babini, well, the move was on, he just carried maybe a little bit too much momentum, and Fernando Monnier wasn't exactly inclined to jump out of the way. Now, at the front of the field, Chiocci has been able to ease away from Duncan Tappy, but Chiocci is having to race around some success seconds in the pits as well. It's Combe Ledegar out on track and in pursuit of Juan Cruz Alvarez. They've also got Miguel Ramos as well, just ahead, and they are all battling for race position. Chiocci heads through the final turn. You can see that scrap forming up ahead of him. Not surprisingly, the contact between Babini and Monnier is under investigation. So Chiocci's got this scrap between Ramos, Cruz Alvarez and Combe Ledegar that he's steadily catching. Now this could be really important for the outcome of the race, because if Ledegar gets delayed behind the Audi or the BMW of Miguel Ramos, as he may well, because they are both quick drivers and both fighting for a good result as well, it's going to really help, particularly this leading trio of cars. Also had the pit stop completed for Davide Roda, but he is racing single-handedly. Now, the pit window closes when there are 24 minutes left on the clock, so they've got still time for another 2 or 3 more laps. Certainly for all of these front runners, that's what they're doing. Fernando Monnier has been in the heart of the battle. I think they'll probably have to throw the pit board at him to get him to come in, because he, I'm sure, has been enjoying this enormously. But now that Andrea Caldarelli has found a way past Monnier, he's already gained a couple of seconds on him. Caldarelli enjoying running in the clear air. Fabio Babini might be in need of a little bit of Ebi Motors miracle masking tape in the pit stop, just to make sure that the front spoiler on the Lamborghini doesn't make a further bid for freedom. Also into the pits comes James Abbott, hand over to Colin Noble. Door goes up on the radical, James gets out, Colin gets in. Now here is Miguel Ramos. Now where is Combe Ledegar? So Ledegar, over the course of the last lap, has found his way past both Juan Cruz Alvarez and indeed Miguel Ramos. So that could be really quite important, as Ledegar is now released in some clear air, and we saw yesterday just how devastatingly quick he was in the Garage 59 McLaren. Meanwhile, we have a spin for Davide Roda, not the first spin he's had this weekend. The Lamborghini Huracan just suddenly breaking traction on him. Shouldn't have delayed him too much. So Marco Ciocci is our race leader with just under 28 minutes remaining. Second place is Duncan Tappy, third is Ewan Hankey. Three of them haven't pitted in. Fourth, it's Andrea Caldarelli. Fifth, Fernando Monnier. Sixth, Fabio Babini. Seventh, Phil Keane. Eighth and leading the GTOpen class is Max Brahms. Ninth is Stefan Lemeray, and they are all cars that haven't pitted. Of those that have pitted, it is Fabrizio Cristani who is at the front of that queue, and he is some 24 seconds up on Colm Ledegaard as John Dillon about to take over from Stefan Lemeray. That was a good performance from Lemeray once more. So he jumps out of the Ferrari and stalks clear. It's going to be time for this leading group, or is there, when they come to the end of this lap? I think that is probably going to be that for them, because the pit window closes when there are 24 minutes left on the clock. I think there's going to be less than a lap time before they get to the 24-minute point. So this is the stage of the race where everything's now going to really start to get turned on its head a little bit. And it all depends on who emerges where, and also how quickly these second drivers can get up to speed. So it's likely to be either Sally Yullock or Michael Benham, depending on how quick the pit stops are undertaken by the TF Sport and Garage 59 teams who emerge in the lead of the race. There might. Nobody is prepared to risk squeezing another lap out of it. So they all duck into the pits. Now this is where the responsibility comes onto the teams. It can take lap upon lap to get the positions gained on the track. It can take just one fumble in the pit stop to lose it all. So Giuseppe Perezzini takes over from Ciocci. Mike Benham takes over from Duncan Tappy. Sally Yullock takes over from Ewan Hankey. Tappy jumps out. Ciocci is already out and walking clear as Perezzini gets in, as Vitantonio Liuzzi takes over in the Triple F Racing Team Lamborghini Huracan. It's a charging drive from Andrea Caldarelli. Now here is Colm Ledegaard. He's got John Dillon the road ahead of him. Ledegaard already easing away from Miguel Ramos and Juan Cruz Alvarez. Ledegaard's got an awful lot of ground to make up, and some very, very quick drivers between him and race victory. I don't think John Dillon should make life too difficult for him. That said, the McLaren can't overhaul the Ferrari on the Mistral straight, but I think that Ledegaard should be able to find a way past into Courbe d'Issy. But you can now see the extent of Ledegaard's task, because Mike Benham emerges from the pit lane with immediately behind him Sally Yullock, then Pier Giuseppe Perezzini and Gustavo Jackermann in very close contention as well. At the back of the shot coming onto the pit straight is the car of Cristani. And Jackermann's just a little bit delayed coming out onto the track. So it's going to be very, very tight into turn one, because we've got a queue of cars about to arrive. But now Mike Benham has got, well, the opportunity to score his second victory of the season, and only now to Ledegaard, Ramos and Juan Cruz Alvarez come into view. So at the end of this lap, we'll be able to give you the definitive order and the gaps that are there to be closed down as Ledegaard eases past Philippe Barrieroth. And what that means is that Barrieroth has emerged from the pits in the lead of the GTOpen battle. Here is the fight for the lead of the race. Michael Benham from Sally Yullock. Both drivers relatively early stages of their racing careers, and both of them a golden opportunity to score victory on the international stage. They've got beautifully set up cars underneath them. They have got a good gap over really the first car that's going to cause them worry, I'd suggest, is Gustavo Jackermann. So there's Duncan Tappy with Alex West in the Garage 59 pit box. Now, Benham has been really impressing those that he's working with. I've been hearing from a lot of people in the paddock that despite his relative inexperience, that he's got to grips with the car and got to grips with how he needs to drive it very, very quickly. And certainly this outlap has been very impressive. He's been able to maintain that buffer to Sally Yuluk as he swings through the final turn, accelerates on to the completion of the 17th lap of the race. We've got 22 minutes remaining. Michael Benham leads. Second place, it's Sally Yuluk. In third is going to be Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, and Perezzini is 8 seconds off the lead. Now, where are Sean Balfe, Gustavo Jackerman and the rest fighting over fourth? Jackerman comes past, 16 seconds off the lead. Fabrizio Cristani is fifth. Sean Balfe is sixth. Emanuele Busnelli is seventh. And Vitantonio Liuzzi is going to be in eighth place. And Liuzzi comes past now, 33.7 seconds off the lead. But it's going to be this next lap, which is going to be the one which tells us whether or not 33 seconds in 22 minutes is on. Hot work for Chiocci. So what's the lap time we're going to see from Mike Benham? Because 22 minutes is still a long time to try and defend an advantage. Certainly for Gustavo Jackerman, 16 seconds is chaseable. For Sally Yuluk, well, he's got the opportunity of being right with him. Here is Gustavo Jackerman. He's got Fabrizio Cristani chasing him down. Now, through the first sector on the lap alone, Jackerman and Cristani were half a second quicker than Benham and Yuluk. Benham and Yuluk have just come through the middle sector, which is one that doesn't tell us an awful lot about driving technique, tells us an awful lot more about how quick the car is in a straight line. It's a 38.0 for Benham and Yuluk. It was a 37.9 for Jackerman, a 37.6 for Cristani. So Gustavo Jackerman, Fabrizio Cristani, they need to almost set aside hostilities, at least for a couple of laps, see whether or not the chase of the race leaders are on. And Gustavo Jackerman looking for his first win in the International GTOpen, as is Fabrizio Cristani. Cristani came very close to achieving it in race 2 in Estoril, but his contact with Alex West then promoted Duncan Tappy and Mike Benham to the win. So Benham and Yuluk go past. Their lap times 2 minutes 8.5 for Benham, 2 minutes 8.3 for Sally Yuluk. Third place, Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, a 2 minutes 10.0. It's 2 minutes 6.9 for Gustavo Jackerman, a 2 minutes 6.9 for Fabrizio Cristani. So they were 2 seconds or thereabouts, 1.8 seconds quicker than Michael Benham and Sally Yuluk. They bring the advantage down. So this could be on. Balfe and Busnelli, by the way, both in the 2 minute 10s, and Liuzzi a 2 minute 8.1. So Liuzzi in the Triple F Lamborghini, I think out, maybe not in contention for the win. Combe Ledegar in 9th place, it's done a 2 minutes 6.0, and Ledegar is 37 seconds off the lead, and he is 2.5 seconds lap quicker than the race leaders. And here they are. Now really, Sally Yuluk and Mike Benham, Yuluk will obviously, if he feels he's got the quicker car, want to try and take the lead, but they also don't want to slow each other down, racing each other too hard here. They're going to have to hold on for another 9 or so laps. If they work together, they don't slow themselves up fighting, then they may well have just got enough time in hand to decide the victory between the pair of them as they swing out of Courbe de Seine into the double right-hander. Riding the curbs, Duncan Tappy, co-driver Michael Benham. The same for Sally Yuluk. So they swing into the technical section, into the pit lane. Unfortunately for Juan Cruz Alvarez, I thought the Audi just seemed a little bit out of sorts, and it looks like he's got a problem with the rear left tyre. So the car goes up on the air jacks. They'll hope to change that and send him back out into the fray. Indeed, that's exactly what's planned as the race leaders streak through. And this has been another very good lap from Mike Benham, who gains a tenth of a second over Sally Yuluk. He leads by 1.3 seconds over Yuluk. Now, the gap was 15 seconds back to Gustavo Jackerman at the start of the lap. Jackerman does a 2 minutes 7.0, 1.4 seconds quicker. It comes down to 13.6 seconds. This is going to be very, very touch and go in terms of the chase for Gustavo Jackerman and the chase for Fabrizio Crestani. Because at 1.4 seconds a lap, by my maths, I don't think that's going to be enough for Jackman and Crestani. They need to be 2 seconds a lap quicker than the race leaders. At the moment, they're not, and therefore, Benham and Ulick, it's going to be close. It's going to depend at what point they cross the line, but I think this could be on. Particularly as they're not fighting with each other just yet. They can leave that until later on. And both drivers racing with increasing consistency almost every time they get in the car. It's just looking smoother and smoother. Sally Ulick, who came to the championship late last year alongside Ewan Hankey. Michael Benham, who is really in the very, very early stage of his motorsport career, but has taken to it like a natural. Now here is Emanuele Busnelli trying to hustle Sean Balfe, getting it all wrong. Quick spin, and that's going to cost him possibly places to Vitantonio Liuzzi and Colm Ledegard. So Pier Giuseppe Perezzini has been caught by Gustavo Jackman and Fabrizio Crestani. As Perezzini's got up to pace as well. He's running at the same pace now as the race leaders. We've still got over a quarter of the race remaining. Sully Ulick knows exactly the task ahead of him. So does Mike Benham. So they swing through the final turn. This completes the 20th lap of the race. Now here's the battle. Gustavo Jackman on the tail of Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, and Jackman launches the inside into the final turn. He's not hanging around, and Fabrizio Crestani is going to follow that gap through, and Crestani draws alongside Jackman. This is the fight for third place. Barely a paper's width between the two cars as they sprint side by side towards turn one. The BMW just about getting its nose in front of the Lamborghini, but Crestani might fancy his chances. Hang on around the outside, indeed he does, and Crestani snatches third place. Brave driving from Fabrizio Crestani. He takes the place away from Gustavo Jackman, and now is released with nothing but 13.7 seconds worth of clear air between himself and the race leaders. Gustavo Jackman into fourth place. At least he's cleared Perezzini, but now with Crestani past him, that's another car that Jackman would have to pass in order to win the race. Further behind, I can tell you that Colm Ledegard has found a way past Vitantonio Liuzzi, so those guys up into seventh. He's 33 seconds off the lead and is off in pursuit of Sean Balfe in sixth position. Meanwhile, Jackman in the BMW closing all the time onto the tail of Crestani. Crestani swings through the chicane. Here come the race leaders out of the Courbe du Sine into the double right-hander. And this is such a tricky section of the circuit because the track is so wide. Picking the right racing line can be quite a challenge, particularly if you've not got that much experience racing here at Paul Ricard. It's a track where ultimately laps is what you need in order to get up to speed. But Ulick and Benham doing a fantastic job at the front of the field. All the while the clock ticks downwards. 14.25 minutes, most likely, by the time they cross the line. As Ulick looks the inside of Benham into the final turn, Mike Benham shuts the door on Sally Ulick, and you wondered when Ulick was going to pull the trigger. The answer was just then, but he couldn't quite squeeze past. So the 30-year-old Turkish driver, Sally Ulick, in pursuit of Mike Benham and the Aston Martin. It's been such a competitive car ever since it came into the championship, but they've never quite had the results that their competitiveness has deserved, and certainly their pace has deserved. But today could be the day. A podium, barring disaster, is looking like a near certainty. Whether or not it can be the top step of it, we will find out, because that last lap from Ulick was an elevation of pace into the 2-minute 7-second bracket. Well, there's Ewan Hankey and Duncan Tappy. So they're the drivers who started the race in the two cars leading it. Now, the only cloud on the horizon here is going to be the progress of Fabrizio Crestani. Crestani still over a second lap quicker than the two race leaders. So Ulick just runs offline into the Mistral chicane. And Cristani, for the first time, really into clear air. He's not going to be distracted by those around them. He is also in pursuit of a debut win in the championship. And he and Thomas Biaggi have had such consistency this year, but the luck's gone away from them whenever they've been in a race-winning position. And this has been a really solid lap from Michael Benham, combined with maybe a slightly less consistent one from Sally Yuluk. It means that the McLaren has opened up a little bit of daylight over the Aston Martin. Looks to be about a second or thereabouts as the pair of them swing through turns 12 and 13 on towards the last couple of corners on the 22nd lap of the race. And we've got time, for my money, for 6 more laps. It's going to feel like an absolute eternity for the two drivers behind the cockpit, behind the wheel. Now Yuluk drops 1.3 seconds back from Benham, both of them in the 2 minutes 8. A 2 minute 8.1 for Benham, a 2 minutes 8.6 for Sally Yuluk, a 2 minutes 6.3 for Fabrizio Cristani, and Cristani now 10.6 seconds back from the race leaders. Here, meanwhile, is Vitantonio Liuzzi pressurising and indeed passing Sean Balfe. So Sean Balfe down to 8th place. Liuzzi up to 7th, Copenhagen in 6th. So for the championship leader Sean Balfe, it's not going to be quite as many points as perhaps he and Phil Keane would have hoped for. The next round is their home event at Silverstone, and he and Keane were on the podium last year at Silverstone. And also what they have had is the metronomic consistency of getting the car to the finish in all of the first 5 races of the year and to the finish in the points. That's what you need in order to win championships. So Yuluk coming back at Benham once more on this lap. And now part of the key here is going to be the tyre management of these two cars, because talking to the teams and drivers yesterday, they were saying at the end of the 70-minute race that they had pretty much got to the end of the useful life of the Michelins. The grip was really going away from them. So that's something they've got to be mindful of, particularly if you get right up to the car in front, really start following in the turbulent air. And they've got a little bit of traffic to contend with, and that is Davide Roda, who has picked up a little bit of damage to the rear left corner of his Lamborghini Huracan. But both of them able to clear Roda without any drama. This has been a better lap for Sally Yuluk. He's now coming back onto terms with Michael Benham, but Benham has done exactly what he's done every single lap of the stint so far. He has just stuck to the racing line. He's not making this easy for Sally Yuluk. He's not driving by his mirrors. He's just driving very smoothly, keeping it under control and running consistently. That lap a little bit slower, 2 minutes 8.5, a 2 minutes 8.2 for Sally Yuluk. Fabrizio Cristani, meanwhile, a 2 minutes 7.0, so he's now within 10 seconds of the lead. He is still got Yakima with him. Here is the moment for Davide Roda. And I just wonder if he's picked up a rear left puncture, in fact. Indeed he has. So the Lamborghini Huracan will get new tyre and then back into the action for Roda, because he is on course for 3rd place in the GTOpen race. So here's the 3rd place car in the race overall, Fabrizio Cristani. And Cristani needs to pull the pin a little bit more, one would suggest. He needs to be into the 2 minutes 6 seconds if he can push the Huracan to do that. Because all the while, each and every corner, the race clock continues to tick down. Benham and Yuluk fly in formation. They will be being kept fully appraised from the team about what's going on. They'll know how long's left in the race. They will know the gaps to those chasing behind. They will probably know as well not to fight with each other until they get to the last couple of laps of the race, and then it's going to be gloves off. I'm absolutely sure. Through the double right-hander, Cristani already a net gain of the best part of 0.7 of a second on this lap so far. But the fact that Cristani's struggling to be solidly in the 2 minutes 6 second bracket would suggest that maybe he's not got the tyres underneath him on the Lamborghini Huracan. swing through the final turn. Just under 8 minutes remain here in Paul Ricard, the 6th race of the International GTOpen season. An absolute thriller underway. Once more, Michael Benham and Sally Yuluk fighting it out for the lead. All the while they have got Fabrizio Cristani and Gustavo Jackermann trying to chase them down, and Cristani has pulled off a much better lap, 1.8 seconds quicker than the race leaders. He's now just 6.5 seconds back from the lead battle. The tension almost unbearable in the garage, 59 garage. As this is such a test of concentration for these drivers, because they have to get each and every corner absolutely spot on. They can't afford to make mistakes. They can't afford to push the car too hard. And then swings through turn 7. He's got Yuluk, his ever-present shadow, as the heat haze shimmers as they accelerate onto the Mistral straight. Looking into the background, there comes Cristani. There comes Gustavo Jackermann. In 5th place, we've got Perezzini. 6th is Colm Ledegaard. 7th, Vitantonio Liuzzi. 8th place is Sean Balfe. 9th, Miguel Ramos. Now, if things stay as they are, or indeed if Benham were to be demoted by Sally Yuluk, that would still give Michael Benham and Duncan Tappy, by my admittedly somewhat shaky maths, the championship lead. They might also promote Cristani and Biaggi up to 2nd in the standings as well. As they head down into the double right-hander. Yuluk a little bit closer this time around. If either pit box has any fingernails left at the end of this one, I'll be absolutely astonished. Benham swings into the left-hander. Yuluk closer still. It was 0.8 of a second at the start of the lap. It looks like it's down to something like 0.6 of a second now midway through this 25th lap of the race. There are just under 6 minutes left on the clock. They're going to have time for 3 more laps, including the one that they're about to start now, as again Yuluk considers sizing up the move into the final turn. Thinks better of it, backs out of it, but it costs him a 10th or 2. That could be critical. Benham flashes across the line. 2 minutes 8.4 for Benham, 2 minutes 8.4 for Yuluk, a 2 minutes 6.4 for Fabrizio Cristani, and Cristani is now just 5.4 seconds adrift of the lead of the race. If he continues this rate of capture at 2 seconds lap, he's going to be with them on the final lap of the race. It will be sooner if Yuluk and Benham start fighting with each other. Gustavo Jackermann, I don't think he's going to be in contention in 4th. So again, Sally Yuluk just that bit more aggressive on the brakes in comparison to Michael Benham. And now Sally Yuluk is thinking into each of the heavy braking zones, certainly at turn 5, certainly at the final corner. He wants to try and push the McLaren. Meanwhile, Sean Balfe has slipped into the clutches of Miguel Ramos. Juan Cruz Alvarez is a lap down, but one of the quickest cars on the track at the moment in the DriveX Audi. So it's not a pass for position, this. Alvarez, it is a pass for position for Ramos on Sean Balfe. It's also a pass that could be absolutely critical in the championship later on in the year. These are 2 of the principal title protagonists. Now, Alvarez in the DriveX Audi, just having an awful lot of fun as well, as they swing down on the brakes into turn 5. Sean Balfe defends the inside line. A little bit of a tap from Alvarez to Miguel Ramos, and the BMW of Miguel Ramos might be able to just get a good run on Sean Balfe as they head towards the Mistral chicane. Certainly Sean Balfe's well aware of that. He plants the Balfe Motorsport Ferrari in the middle of the road, but Ramos is not going to pull the pin on the move this time around on the brakes into the Mistral chicane. Thinks better of it. Meanwhile, the race leaders, I can tell you that Cristani is already a second up on Benham and Yuluk through the first sector of the lap alone, or the first 2 sectors of the lap rather, as Alvarez looks to the outside of Miguel Ramos. It means that Ramos can't challenge Sean Balfe. And Cruz Alvarez trying to clear these cars. His target is John Dillon, admittedly a long way up the road. We're just 3 minutes remaining. We're into the penultimate lap of the race, as Cristani is only 3.5 seconds back now from the race leader, so it's very close at the front of the field. The fight for 8th position continues to rage. Sean Balfe is been demoted by the Yutzi, been demoted by Ricard, doesn't want to lose any more places. I think he would feel that he is the match for Miguel Ramos. As now Juan Cruz Alvarez draws alongside the BMW Miguel Ramos in the GTOpen class. That's led once more by Felipe Barrieroth and Max Brahms. As Juan Cruz Alvarez tries to get that lap on Miguel Ramos. Ramos launches the inside of Sean Balfe, takes them both wide, and suspect that Ramos is going to have to back right out of that and give the place back to Sean Balfe. We'll find out in due course. Balfe certainly in no particular hurry to reinsert himself into that battle, but that's one that will possibly be discussed after the race. We are on the penultimate lap of the race. The fight at the front of the field, I think, is still very close. Here it is, as Benham runs wide coming out of the Courbe du Cygne, and now Sally Yuluk is on him, and this is going to be several kilometres of sheer suffering for Benham as he spins, and he takes Yuluk with him, and there's contact between the pair of them. Oh, disaster for both Benham and Yuluk, and it promotes Fabrizio Crostani into the lead of the race. Sally Yuluk rejoins. I really hope that the Aston Martin hasn't been too badly damaged as he recovers into second position, but I fear that he may have picked up a puncture. We will see, as they're about to start the last lap of the race, and another late drama in the International GTOpen here at Paul Ricard. There was no malice in that from Benham. He just pushed a step too hard. It left Yuluk with nowhere to go. So here is the race leader. Fabrizio Crostani leads into the final lap of the race. Gustavo Jackerman in second, and Sally Yuluk down into third position. And, well, it was in Estoril where the contact between Crostani and West promoted Benham and Tapie to the win. Here is another look at it. Benham just got on the throttle a fraction of a second too early. Sally Yuluk had nowhere to go, and as the McLaren rotated, it just tagged the Aston Martin. An utter dejection in the Garage 59 and TF Sport pit boxes. And there really was absolutely nothing that Sally Yuluk could do. He went the right way. He was trying at that sort of speed just to avoid the rotating car, but it just tagged the Aston Martin. So Fabrizio Crostani and Thomas Biaggi, well, the luck hasn't so far swung their way this season when they've been in the winning position, but it certainly has now as they head down the Mistral Straight for the final time and turn into the Courbe du Cygne. In second place, it is Gustavo Jackerman, and in third place, well, at least Sally Yuluk didn't pick up enough damage to that TF Sport Aston Martin to prevent him making it through to the flag. It's not quite the result that it might have been, but nonetheless, it's going to be something, as Crostani is now just a couple of corners from home. It has been the most dramatic weekend of action from the International GTOpen here in Paul Ricard, and it is going to be victory for the Orange One Team Lazarus Lamborghini Huracan. Fabrizio Crostani and Thomas Biaggi. Crostani accelerates out to the final turn. He takes the checkered flag and the win. Second place goes to the Team Teo Martin BMW of Gustavo Jackerman and Fernando Monnier, and third for Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey. Yuluk takes the flag now, so at least Ewan Hankey and he get on to the rostrum, with Pier Giuseppe Perezzini, Marco Ciocci in fourth from Cole Ledegaard, and Alex West in fifth. Then Vitantonio Liuzzi and Andrea Caldarelli will take sixth position. Well, after Biaggi was involved in that late race contact yesterday, which took him out of a race-winning position, it's Crostani who has been the beneficiary of late race contact today in the Lamborghini Huracan. And he will enjoy the tour of the circuit back to the pits. The marshals have got the flags ready to salute our race winners. Gustavo Jackerman, Fernando Monnier in second position. Well, that's going to begin to get their championship charge back underway. We've still got 8 further races to come this year in the International GTOpen. for Crestani and Biaggi. Well, Crestani was catching Benham and Yuluk in any event. The rate of capture suggests he would have been on them for the final lap of the race. But in the end, the spin from Michael Benham and the fact that Sally Yuluk got caught up in it was enough to promote Crestani to the victory. The GTOpen class claimed by Felipe Barrieros and Max Brahms. So they do the double today in the GTOpen class from then John Dillon, Stefan Lemray with Davide Roda, the third of the GTOpen runners. And there is the winning car of Barrieros and Brahms, the Renault RS01, the V8 racing team. So look then at the final results. Well, victory for Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani, second place to Gustavo Jacob and Fernando Monnier, third, Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey, fourth, Perezzini and Ciocci from Western Ledegar and Ledegar setting the fastest lap of the race. Caldarelli and Liuzzi taking sixth from Sean Balfe and Phil Keane, then Ramos and Rodriguez in eighth from Busnelli and Babini, and then Abbott and Noble completing the top 10. Brahms Barrieros winning the GTOpen class in 11th from Dillon and Lemray, and then Davide Roda, the third GTOpen runner. Well, Benham and Tapie will be classified, but such disappointment for them, and it was a brilliant performance until that moment from them at the front of the field throughout the course of the race. So in terms of the championship, we'll bring you up to date with that in due course. The next time the cars are in action is the 23rd and 24th of July on the Silverstone Grand Prix circuit, and make sure you join us for that. It promises to be, if it's anything like this weekend, a quite fantastic spectacle as Fabrizio Crestani rolls to a halt in Parc Fermé. He and Thomas Biaggi are the victors in the sixth round of this year's International GTOpen Championship. Second place is Gustavo Jacob and Fernando Monnier, with Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey taking third. Biaggi runs down to congratulate Crestani. Don't think they quite expected it, but they're going to enjoy the moment nonetheless. Certainly the crowd given plenty of entertainment. It's a smile from Jacob as he enjoys the celebration. So does Fabrizio Crestani. And in third place for Sally Yuluk and Ewan Hankey, a little bit of what might have been for the TF Sport team. So here's a look at the championship then. Crestani and Biaggi move into the lead of the championship from Keane and Balfe. Rodriguez and Ramos in third, Benham and Tapie in fourth, but I'm sure that they will score more wins between now and the end of the season and be in the championship fight. Well, the mixed emotions of motorsport, utter delight for the Orange One Team Lazarus team, disappointment for the TF Sport team, and you would imagine utter disappointment and dejection for Garage 59. Well, we'll be hopefully hearing from our race winners in a couple of moments' time. I'm sure that there will be plenty of stories to tell from this weekend.
Beautiful first victory for Thomas Biaggi, Fabrizio Crestani. It is well deserved. Yeah, we believe in that. We try hard. Today, in the start of the race, my aim was to give the car in the best position as possible to Fabrizio. When I saw a lot of battle in front of me, I tried to manage the tire to give to Fabrizio a very good tire, and I was very happy about the car, very confident. So then Fabrizio he pushed hard as he can, as he know how to do, and he did a fantastic second stint.
Yesterday the battle was unlucky for you, but this time a little bit of luck at the end.
Yeah, we had the problem at the pit stop yesterday when we lost the advantage ahead in the first stint. But then today, you know, great satisfaction. This is all for the team, for Lamborghini. Thomas did a great job managing the tires in the first stint. When I went out, I just did 3 qualifying laps when I catch, you know, a lot of guys there. And then great overtaking to the BMW, was then catching the lead. But yeah, one day they spun off, so it was a great feeling, great feeling.
Well done, guys. Bravi ragazzi. Podium now.
Thank you. Grazie.
Let's take a look back then at the highlights of another truly dramatic race, as it was Duncan Tappy who converted pole position and had Marco Ciocci on his tail really throughout the opening phase of the race. Great scrapping between the pair of them, but eventually Ciocci was able to sneak past in the AF Course Ferrari just before we hit the mid-race pit stops. Further back, Fernando Monnier, Andrea Caldarelli, Fabio Babini were involved in an absolutely thrilling wheel-to-wheel scrap, which left more than one car a little bit in the wars. It also gave Phil Keane the chance to join in as well in the Balfe Motorsport Ferrari. Davide Roda was pushing very, very hard in the GTOpen class, possibly a little bit too hard on occasion as we hit the mid-race pit stops, and then had some great battling that followed on, although Emanuele Busnelli pushing too hard in the AB Motors Lamborghini. Well, at the front of the field, Michael Benham and Sally Ullich were flying in tandem, and they were being chased by Gustavo Iacomini and Fabrizio Crestani. The Italian picking his way past Iacomini with that move. So we got onto the penultimate lap. Benham was pushing so hard to hold on to the win, but lost the rear of the McLaren, and as he spun, he tagged the Aston Martin of Sally Ullich. It promoted Crestani, and Iacomini Ullich was able to rejoin in third place. So Fabrizio Crestani and Thomas Biaggi took the win from Gustavo Iacomini and Fernando Monnier, with Sally Ullich and Ewan Hankey completing the podium. There's lots of very happy drivers about to be announced onto the rostrum. In third place, Sally Ullich and Ewan Hankey. Runners up, Gustavo Iacomini and Fernando Monnier. And our race winners, Fabrizio Crestani and Thomas Biaggi for the Orange One Team Lazarus Lamborghini squad.
Mesdames, Mesdemoiselles, Messieurs, en l'honneur de l'équipe vainqueur, l'hymne italien.
Perché te lo volava?
The Italian national anthem in honour of winners of race 2 in Paul Ricard, Fabrizio Crestani and Thomas Biaggi. So we move on to the trophies. Well, Sally Ullich and Ewan Hankey, they're on the podium. It's their first podium of the season in the TF Sport Aston Martin. It might have been more, but nonetheless they can smile after a race well driven. Runners-up, Gustavo Iacomini and Fernando Monnier, and race winners, Thomas Biaggi and Fabrizio Crestani. We now turn our attention to Silverstone on the 23rd and 24th of July, as the international GTOpen season will continue there. But now the drivers about to make merry with the champagne, which means it's time for myself, Ben Evans, to say thank you very much for joining us in France this weekend, and we'll see you in Silverstone in a few weeks' time.
travailler avec le Stratilon et Stéphane Vénéré. Et sur la plus haute marche du podium, pour le Pays-Bas, Netherlands, M. Mats Mons et Philippe